All right, good morning, you guys. Thanks for joining me today for this pre-calculus session on transformations of trig functions. Can you guys let me know if the file came through the file transfer window for the transformations for trig function sheet? It should have popped up on your screen for you to save it. Dakota said he got it. Josh got it. Anybody else? Okay, Sabrina and Stefan got it also. Okay. I would love for you to print that sheet out. I created that sheet for you over the weekend because I think that through the online lessons, they really have all the information scattered. But what I've done for you is I've put it all into one spot for you. That way you can know what each and every letter is going to be doing to our graph, and we're going to explore that a little bit together today. This is going to be a shorter session because at the end I am going to tell you how you're going to earn your points. We're going to go take a little quick quiz and you'll see why when we get there. So let's go ahead and move forward. Were you able to print that out, by the way? Does anybody have a printer handy and they already have the note sheet printed out? If you do, you can write on top of that today. If not, make sure you do print it out before you go to take your next quiz or your next test. So let's talk for a minute about how H and K affect our graph. We have seen this in so many lessons throughout Algebra 2 about how different letters affect the way that a graph looks. This particular graph is going to be an absolute value because I put an absolute value sign, but I basically put it up here to remind you how H and K are going to affect your graph. Does anybody remember, by the way? How is H going to affect your graph? H always moves your graph. Anybody remember? I know it's been a while, but actually all equations are the same, whether we're talking about a trig function, an absolute value function, a parabola, they're all the same. You guys are right. So H is going to move it left and right, which means that K is going to move our graph up and down. But does anybody remember anything unusual about H? I see you guys typing, so I'll give you just a moment. Okay, so you guys are right. Because it already has this minus sign in there, we are really going to do the opposite of what it says. So if we see an x minus 2 in there, we're really going to go to the right 2. If we see an x plus 3, we would go left 3. So we're going to do the opposite of what it says. So I like to say left or right and then put the word opposite in there. And we said K at the end is just going to shift your whole graph up or down. And then what we learned is that A actually stretches your graph, stretches or compresses your graph. So let's take our previous knowledge and now let's apply it to some trig functions here. So this is part of the sheet that I doc shared with you guys that you should have in front of you or saved on your computer. So let's take a peek here. This time I'm calling my letters A, B, C, and D, and I do go over what each letter means, but let me hide that for just a moment. Let's talk about what we know. So C is the same as the H that we just talked about a moment ago, and the plus D is the same as the K that we just talked about. So looking back here, right, our H and our K, these are the same letters. They're, well, different letters, but they do the same function to our graph. So how is C going to affect my trig function? C is going to shift my graph left or right. Opposite. How is plus D going to affect my graph? The D is going to shift it up or down. Is everybody okay with that concept now? I'm relating our old knowledge to our new knowledge, to where we're going. So now I do have two new letters. I have A and B. A is really not new either though. So if I come back here, we said that anytime I have an A in the front, that's really just going to be stretching my graph. So guess what it's going to be doing on this one? How is A going to affect my graph? It's just going to be stretching my graph. Isn't that cool? So really the only new letter that we have that we've never seen before is going to be this letter B. So let's take a peek at the notes that I shared with you here. So it says A. A is going to either do a vertical stretch or a vertical contraction. So vertical stretch would make our max and our min farther apart. That would make sense, right? If you're stretching something and pulling it farther and farther apart, then our max and our min are going to get farther and farther apart from each other. If A is in between 0 and 1, meaning it's some kind of a fraction, that would be a vertical contraction. So think of you taking your hands and you squishing the graph together. It's making your max and your min closer together. Can I get a smiley face if everybody's okay so far? Okay, excellent. So let's keep going. I'm going to come back to B. We're going to do B last because B is really our only new letter, right? So here, let me pull this up. We'll do B last. Okay, so C is what's going to be called a phase shift. They're giving it a new vocabulary word here. That's going to move our graph left or right. So remember, this is just like H in the last problem. So if it's a negative, you're going to go to the right. And if it's a positive, you're going to go to the left. So just like before on the last slide, right here. If it's a -2, you're going to shift it to the right. If it's a +3, you're going to shift it to the left 3. Here's how I always remind myself. Remember when we used to talk about factors, when I had an x +2? What did the +2 really mean when it was a solution? It was really a -2. Whenever I see absolute values or parentheses, I'm always thinking to myself the word opposite. So let's check out here. See how C is inside my parentheses? So I need to be thinking it's always the opposite. So negative will go to the right, positive will go to the left, just like it's always been. Now D on the end, you're just going to do exactly what it says. And how does D affect your graph? The one that's on the outside just goes up and down. Negatives go down, positives go up. So if I put a +2 on the end, if here's my sine graph, and I did +2 at the end, that would just shift your graph up 2. So can I get a smiley face if you understand C and D? Those are not new. C and D are not new. They're just new letters, but it's not a new concept. Now, if I have a -a, so let's pretend instead of an A, I put a negative on it. What you're going to do is you'll take your original graph, but just reflect it across the x-axis. So just like a mirror, as if you put a mirror on the x-axis. And if your B is a negative, then you're going to reflect it across the y. So let's go ahead and now let's talk about what B is, because that's really our only new letter. So B is going to be any number that's in front of our x right here. If it's greater than 1, it's going to be a horizontal contraction. So think coming back here. If here's one of my sine functions, and I want to contract it, basically what you're doing to it is you're taking it and you're squishing it in. Squish, 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 squish. So you're taking your hands on the two outside edges and you're squishing it together. If B is between 0 and 1, so if B is a fraction, it's going to be a stretch. It's going to make your zeros further apart. So if here was my original, here would be my stretch. Would be a much skinnier, longer period. So how are we doing with those ideas? Does this cheat sheet help? I hope. This way you don't have to hunt and peck through all your slides. I kind of gave it to you all in one spot. That's why I wanted you to wait until you had this sheet before you took your next quiz. So let's do a quick little example here. I actually have a graphing calculator in Illuminate. Is that not cool? Can you guys see the calculator now? Yes, excellent. Okay, so let's check this out. So right now I have graphed y equals sine x. So that's our basic trig function. So let's add in a couple numbers and let's see how we think it's going to affect it. So first let's put in an a here. Let's make our a 3. So we said that the 3 out in front, our a, should be a stretch, right? It should be stretching our whole graph. Let's see. It did. It vertically stretched our graph. Is everybody okay with the difference between our original and our stretched version? Okay, if I'm looking at it, Our zeros are still at the same spot. Everybody see that? Zeros are still at the same spot. So what has really changed here? Our maxes and our mins have changed. Kind of cool. Higher maxes, lower minimums. So let me take out that A now. Let's add in a number inside of the X. So if I do a -2, before I hit enter, let's just think about it for a minute. If I'm subtracting 2 inside the parentheses, what do you think should happen to the graph? So this is our C, right? A -2 is the same as our C value. How does the C value change your graph? It's going to shift our graph which way? Look back on your notes. Okay, so our C value, back up here again, our C value shifts it left and right. So if I put in a -2, it really should shift it to the, what do we think? To the right too. Let's see if that happened. So on my original blue graph, it's not letting me draw on here. Can you guys see my pointer on the graph or no? I'm not sure what it lets you see. I don't know if it lets you see my mouse or not on the graph. No pointer. Okay, but you do see the graph. Okay. So if you guys see the blue line, do you guys see how the blue line crosses at 0, 0, right? Now look at the red. Look where the red now crosses. It crosses at 2, 0. Do you see how it shifted it to the right 2 spots? Which is what we know should happen, right? Because if I put in an X -2, it should shift it to the right 2. Excellent. On the graph, are you guys able to see the equations that I've typed in to the bottom? Can you guys see the bottom of the graph where you see my equations too? Yes? Okay, well that's good. All right, so let me take out the -2 and let me add in sin of x plus 4. I'm going to put a +4 at the end outside of the parentheses. Now we learned that that's going to be your D value, and D should be shifting up and down. So if I do a +4, we should see the original and we should see it shifted up 4. Excellent. Isn't that awesome? Yeah, it says I'm sharing it right now, so hopefully you're able to see that. Okay, so I'm hoping that what you guys are seeing is that just by changing your A, B, C, and D, you're taking your original graph and you're just transforming it a little bit. You're shifting it left or right, you're shifting it up or down, you're stretching it, or you're compressing it. Can you guys think of any questions that you have right now? I think that this cheat sheet is really going to help you as you move forward. I know that it helped me. Okay, so you're going to take these notes with you, and then at the bottom of the notes I put a couple other things I wanted you to think about. Oops, I guess I didn't write them all down there. But it just said questions for you to ask yourself. How does each letter affect the following? What happens to your zeros if you change A? What happens to the period if you change A? What happens to your max and min if you change A? So all of those are questions that you should be able to answer. And the best way to do it, you guys, is play around with it on a graphing calculator, kind of like what I just did. Just change one letter at a time. That way you are able to see exactly how it changes your graph. Plus you have all the notes over here on the right. So in order to get credit for today's session, again, I know that I told you it was just going to be a quick little session for me to give you these notes and go over them. What we're going to do today is there's this thing called EAP. Has anybody heard of that before? It's like early aptitude preparedness or something like that. I'm not sure. But basically what it is this is part of the state testing every year for 11th graders. And even if you're not in 11th grade, everybody but one of you is in 11th grade. Everybody's still going to do this anyway because it's great help. What it is it's part of your state test, and anybody who passes the math section of the EAP, you do not have to take college algebra once you get into college, which is awesome. That's a whole class that you don't have to take. Now, I automatically am assuming that none of you guys need college algebra since you're in pre-calculus, but you do have to prove it to the college in order to test out of it. So we're going to practice a little bit today. It's just a really short couple question test just to see how prepared you are. The link is up here on the screen, right here. And in order to get credit for week 6, here's how you're going to get credit for attending today's live session. In the week 6 Dropbox, I want you to tell me how many questions you answered correctly and your final score. That's going to show me that yes, you took the test and you know exactly how many questions were on it. Does that make sense? It's very short. Shouldn't take you more than 10-15 minutes. All right, excellent. And actually, everybody does need math in college. It's one of your GE requirements, one of your general education requirements is college algebra. So if you can pass out of it before you get there, that's one less class you have to take, even if you're not pursuing more math in college. Does that make sense? Every college makes you take college algebra. Yeah. So we're just practicing today. So everybody can go ahead. We are finished with our live session. You're going to go to this website. And then once you're done taking it, you're going to go to week 6, and in the Dropbox, you're going to tell me how many you answered correctly and your final score. I think it gives it to you in percentage form. Oops. Yeah, Dakota, let me grab the link, and I'll paste it into here. I guess I had some other really weird thing pasted. Okay, give me just a second. You should be able to click right on the screen. Yikes, yikes, yikes. Okay, let me grab the link in case somebody needs it. Okay, there you go. Let me get it out of the screen. I kind of have something weird else pasted in there. But if you weren't able to click on it from the screen, go ahead and click on it from the chat area. And you guys have a fabulous, fabulous day. Let me know if you need anything else. Thanks. Bye.